Good morning, y'all. This morning I'm very much bothered, and I think by the end of this video y'all gonna be bothered too. Last night I watched a TikTok, and there was this young man, and he said he went into a restaurant and there was an older white man celebrating his birthday with his family, 96 or something like that. And he said that, he congratulated him, happy birthday and all that. And then the white man started to talk to him. And he said there's so many things in his life he regrets. And he began to tell him about how he was a firefighter, when he was working. And he said that back in the 60s and 70s, times were different. And he said it was very common practice, him included, he admitted to this, that there would be burning buildings, burning cars, or burning structures where black people were in there, and they would pretend like they didn't hear their screams and not save them on purpose. And he said, the last time that he did it, he went into a building to go get a baby, a black baby. And he went in, he heard the baby screaming and crying, and he just stood there and came out and said, oh, I couldn't save him. And the young man said, for a second, I wanted to pull the plug on his old behind, right? But then he came back and said, wait, of course they did. Of course they did. And it wasn't just him. This was the whole police department for years and years and years. Not just him, but everybody else in the police department. In the fire department. But like I was saying, he said, of course they did. They all hate us. It don't matter what field they're in. He was like, I knew police, people at the job, in every other area and sector and in the hospitals. He's like, but you would never think that another human being would let another human being burn to death, hear their screams, and just stand there and let them die. But of course they did. And I don't know if this was this old man's way of kind of like apologizing or coming clean about it to make him feel better. But let me tell y'all something. That made me so, that made me so sick. But I'm not surprised. When there's a group of people that used to have barbecues, cookouts over a hanging families, they would have families of hanging people, black people, and have a barbecue up under their bodies. Kids running around playing, smiling. How could you expect anything more from that? How could you? There's a lack of empathy that just blows my mind. And nobody gets away with anything. So when you see these older people walking around and it's because of all that demonic evil sin that they've done to us in particular in their day. And if anybody knows me, you know that I don't care what color, I really don't. But I'm not going to be shamed into being quiet about the things that have been done against us from a certain group of people. I'm not going to be shamed into being quiet about it. Okay? And they're going to pay for that. They're going to have to answer to God for that. The same way we had to answer, the same way we getting punished, and the same way all this stuff, the oppression, the slavery, all that has happened to us because of what our forefathers did, they're going to pay for it. And I think they're starting to realize that. Because what's happening is, what I'm noticing is, they're splitting into two. There's one sect of people that realize that, it's coming down, and I think we're in trouble here. Let me try to smooth this over. Hey, let me be nice to them. Let me not discriminate against them. Let me try to get this hate out of my heart against them. And then there's another group of people that knows what's coming, and they say, let me squeeze tighter. Let me do a little bit more, because they're getting out of control. So you guys understand that.
Hello guys, welcome once again to the channel. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great time. Now, many times in the channel, we have always talked about some of the issues that have befallen black people in the United States and across the world. And one of the group of blacks that have really been talked about over the years are the blacks in the United States because of the kind of atrocities that they have faced in their lives. We know that there are other people who have done worse to black people, and sometimes history books tend not to really record them. For example, we know that blacks were moved from Africa to the Arab world, but what was done to them is something that is really baffling me. They were castrated and they were not given any opportunity to procreate because it seems these Arabs did not want black people to have their children in that part of the world. And that is why if you go to the Arab world, you'll realize that the population of black people is quite low. That is what has happened in that area. But then in the United States, we have seen a sustained move or a sustained breed of people who kind of hate blacks. They don't want anything good to happen to blacks. They don't want anything good coming out of black people. And in the instance that blacks tend to show any progress, then they are scuttled and their growth is really diminished. So I came across a clip here that is heartbreaking for me. A lady was speaking about how she heard of a story of how a white guy who was working as a firefighter could at certain times avoid rescuing blacks just because of this hatred that exists. And listening to her, because she knows how to tell this story best, you will get to know that for sure blacks have always been hated in the United States by these whites. And this, I don't know what they want to achieve with this, because regardless of what they have done to blacks, we have always stood up and really overcome them. The resilience within black people is unmatched because they have tried to eliminate us. They have tried to make us not exist. But regardless of the kind of challenges that they have thrown to us, still we endure and we live. I wanted to watch this compilation of clips that I've put for you, where different creators are talking about some of the sufferings that blacks have gone through. It is quite heartbreaking. I want you to listen to it, then we shall be back in the end. But before we delve in, please, if you're watching us for the first time, kindly consider subscribing. We are on our way to 100,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate it if you joined us in achieving this journey. Let's watch, then come back and share our thoughts.
Like I said, when war is happening, it's going to be a silent war on us. It already is, but it's going to be more. And I know no one wants to talk about this. No one wants to admit this or even acknowledge it. But them people that's racist against us, God's children, the people that hate us, that have malice in their hearts, that have literally spilled our innocent blood on the ground, have partaken in that, have benefited from it, and have not repented of it, and still do it to this day, they are going to hell. And we don't talk enough about hell anymore. I know back in the day it used to be hellfire and brimstone. Hell still exists, and I don't think people are afraid of hell enough at this point. But they are going to hell. People that have hatred in their hearts, you are akin to a murker. And you know what I mean by murker. You hate your brother, you are akin to a murker. And like I said, that is what keeps me at peace, because I know one day God is going to make it all right. And this is not just for one race, but they're going to pay for that as a whole, as a race, their forefathers, what they've done, they're going to pay for it. But all of the wicked, all of the evil, all of the people, no matter what color, race they are, that have engaged in wickedness, unrepented wickedness, they will pay for it. God is going to make it all right. And even us that have repented, we still are going to be judged. Everybody will be judged. And it's a scary thought. But I just wanted to tell y'all that, because I know that we as black people are very tired. We are tired. And if you think God has not heard our blood spilled on the ground crying out to him the same way Abel's blood cried out to him from the ground, his innocent blood, the same way Cain is marked, those that have spilled our blood, innocent blood, they are marked as well. They are marked as well. God has not changed. He's the same God. And if they have not repented of that, and repenting means asking for forgiveness and turning away from it, we're all gonna get let me get away from that. But it's not too much longer now, y'all, and we may never see it in this generation. We may never see it. My generation, even my kids, we don't know. But we do know one thing: God has not changed. He is still the same God. So do not think or believe that all these people that you see walking and running around, riding their bikes, jogging without a care in the world, money, all of that was built on our blood and our bodies, it will be destroyed, and it will be repaid to us. But that's enough of my rant, y'all. We're tired.
I have accidentally befriended people, white people, who are racist against black people, but not racist against me because I'm Hispanic. And I just want to explain why I think they're like that. I know that it's obviously not every white person is racist, you guys, but sadly, here in Texas, I have met people who, once I start hanging out with them and they get comfortable with me, they do say racist things or things that are just not okay directed towards black people, but they're completely fine with me being Hispanic. A lot of times these are people who, maybe I meet them at work and they hear me translating for like a customer or someone who doesn't speak English, and so they know I speak Spanish, and they find out that I'm Hispanic and everything's fine, and I'm like, oh, like this person is like fun to hang out with. But like I said, they get comfortable with me and then they start saying racist shit. I think the reason they do this is because they romanticize Hispanic culture. So, because me specifically, you guys, I'm Puerto Rican. My mom was born and raised in Puerto Rico. She lived there like the first 20 years of her life until she moved away. And I think they romanticize that specifically because when they think of Puerto Rico, they're like, oh, the beaches, like maybe I should go there next summer on vacation. They think of like West Side Story. They're thinking about like the arroz con habichuelas and the sorullos and the flan and like Prince Royce, Bad Bunny. They're thinking about how, oh, the women are so beautiful, the language is so romantic. It's almost like there's this mystery around it because they don't really know that much. And they're like, oh, like I love Latinos, like I love the culture. And so it's something that they can easily romanticize because there's a lot of things that they like, and it seems almost like this distant, like, oh, Puerto Rico's another country. Even though Puerto Rico is part of the United States, you guys, there are some white people that don't even freaking know that. Like, I remember a few years ago, I was in San Juan because I was visiting my family over there, and I was walking around, and I heard this white lady on the phone, and she was like, I can't talk right now, I'm in another country. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I just can't forget that because she was like older. And I remember turning my head and I was like, girl, like, because like I said, I think some people, they see it as like vacation destination, it's another country. And I also think that these white people that I've known in my life, who end up being racist towards black people, I think they like me because I'm so freaking pale, dude. And so they're like, oh, Kayla's one of us, but she's like kind of spicy. They kind of still see me as one of them. But the thing is, like, if you're going to be racist, just be racist towards everybody. It doesn't make sense to me why you're picking and choosing who you're going to be racist against. And I think the reason that they are comfortable being racist towards black people is because, we see black people everywhere here in the United States. And because of the slave trade, a lot of y'all don't know, specifically where your family is from or, where you're from. You just are like, well, we're just from the United States because sadly, because of all the horrible things that happen, I know that a lot of y'all can't trace back specifically where you were from, And so the romance and the mystery is gone. It's just like, oh, they're just black people, whatever. And, I think it's also envy because they are envious of like your big lips, how, your dark skin, because we see a lot of white people who are obsessed with being tan. And, I think they're also envious of like how you guys are just naturally curvy or strong. And again, you guys, I'm not trying to just trash on white people. It's just that I don't even make white friends anymore here in Texas because this has happened like too many times, honestly, with me, where I'm like, I feel like I just wasted my time like befriending someone because they, like I said, they end up saying racist things about black people when we're alone to me. And I'm like, dude, if you say that about black people, what do you say when I'm not around? Because that I'm Hispanic. So for example, with all the things happening with ICE, I'm like, when I'm not there, would you say, oh, they deserve it? Oh, I trust the government. Oh, well, they're probably criminals. Like, what do you say about us when I'm not there? Like, if you're okay being racist towards one group of people, I mean, I have to assume that you're being racist towards me when the time comes or when I'm not there. And I know this is like a huge rant, and I'm not trying to be mean or like be like, I hate white people, but this is literally something that has happened over the course of a couple years, you guys, that it's the same thing happening with me, and I'm just like that, that I've noticed from white people that I will befriend. And that's why I think they do it, because for a long time I didn't get it. I was like, why are you acting like that? And then I was like, oh, okay. I started to connect the dots, but like I said, it's not okay, dude. Like, just don't be racist towards any group of people. You can't pick and choose who you like. Like, that doesn't make sense.
One of the biggest realizations I've had as a Black girl who grew up in predominantly white spaces is the fact that A, a lot of your white friends are actually racist, and B, a lot of your white friends are complicit with racism, benefit from it, or are too comfortable with racism to ever say anything. I started to come to this realization during the BLM protests, and this theory has been even furthered with the ICE raids that are currently happening right now. And this complicitness comes in forms of A, having that racist boyfriend that says the N-word and is like so awful and will absolutely do nothing about it, or B, never standing up for anything, never saying anything. I'm not asking you to be like a civil rights leader, this, that, and the third. But a lot of white people are very, very comfortable with what the benefits are through racism. So they will never, ever say anything. They will continue to have people in their circle that are very, very racist people. I will never forget growing up when I went to the mall with this girl and she told me something. She was like, I'm so happy you're not like the others. And then I asked her, what do you mean by the others? And she was like, other Black people, like always sagging their pants and just like the way they act and just this, that, and the third. I was appalled. And this is somebody I thought was like a really good friend of mine. This is so normal. A lot of white people have such biased beliefs, such stereotypes like ingrained in them. They don't even think twice about it. I find this phenomenon so interesting because it really shows that at the end of the day, a lot of humans are just out for themselves and are just going to be thinking about themselves. They're not going to speak up for you in a room full of people that look like them. That would take lots of guts. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that.
10 things white people say to Black people that are racist, even if they don't realize it. You're so articulate. Why is it racist? It assumes that Black people are generally expected to be less intelligent or incapable of speaking well. Complimenting basic communication feels patronizing and reveals a biased, low expectation. I don't see color. Why is it racist? It erases the lived experiences of Black people, including the discrimination they faced. Ignoring race doesn't solve racism. It ignores its impact. Can I touch your hair? Your hair is so exotic. Why is it racist? Black hair isn't an exhibit for public curiosity. This fetishization reduces a Black person to an object of fascination, ignoring their humanity. Where are you really from? Why is it racist? It implies that Black people can't truly be American, are British, etc., and perpetuates the idea that they don't belong. You're pretty for a Black person. Why is it racist? It generalizes all Black people into a monolithic group based on harmful stereotypes. Black people are individuals, not a hive mind. I have Black friends, so I can't be racist. Why is it racist? Having Black friends doesn't absolve someone of racism, nor does it mean they understand or even respect Black experiences. It often comes off as a deflection rather than addressing someone's problematic behavior. You're not like other Black people. Why is it racist? This is a backhanded insult to the broader Black community, reinforcing negative stereotypes while positioning the individual as an exception. Slavery was a long time ago. Why don't you just get over it? Why is it racist? It dismisses generational trauma and systemic inequalities rooted in slavery and ongoing racism, showing ignorance of history and its ongoing effects. All lives matter. Why is it racist? It dismisses specific struggles Black people face by undermining the purpose of Black Lives Matter to address racial inequality and police brutality. Saying all lives matter ignores these disparities. Comments like these often come from ignorance, not malice, but it doesn't make them less harmful. These statements invalidate, stereotype, and patronize black people and perpetuate the very biases many of them claim they do not have. It's important to listen, learn, and engage with humility to avoid unintentionally reinforcing racism.
Oh, liberals and black people just assume that all white people like me are racist, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and they are absolutely right to do that. Do you want to know why? Because a white person will see the color of my skin as another white person and immediately assume that I am a safe spot for casual racist commentary. My roommate had an Uber driver yesterday that he's had a handful of times. But yesterday, on this particular drive back to our house, this Uber driver started making casually racist comments about police brutality being warranted against the black community. To be clear, that is racism. And mind you, this man has no interest in reading books about political policy within the past 60 years. He has no interest in learning about statistics. He has no interest in learning about systemic racism or systemic issues in general. He has no interest in doing that. He has no interest in learning about how enslaved people were supposed to receive reparations. And I believe it was Andrew Johnson that said we were going to do that, but now we're not going to. And then came Jim Crow and black code laws. He has no idea that a white man with a criminal record is like 10 times more likely to get a callback interview than a black man without a criminal record. Most white people do not care to learn. And so they say racist shit in front of other white people because they assume that our skin color is a safe space for casual racism, not realizing that the government has created the conditions of poverty in which black people live in. That the government has created the conditions in which black people are funneled in and out of the prison system like a revolving door. Most liberals and leftists and black people might think that most white people are racist, and that is completely warranted because most white people will see another white person and feel immediately comfortable spouting casually racist comments as if they're going to get immediate approval for those comments.
I think the real reason that some white people get upset or like don't understand when they see black people in spaces that they're in or black people in positions of authority or advancing and things like that, the reason that they relate it to like, well, it must be like you're getting something that you're not qualified for, like it is racism, but there's another underlying part of that, and it really boils down to the fact that they can't fathom a reality where you advance in life, where you get a position, where you move up at all without stealing something or stepping on somebody or exploiting somebody. They can't, in their brain, they don't have any recall within their collective history of any time period where they've been able to build without stealing or massacring or doing something to somebody else. So like when they see another group of people, whether that be black people or POC, in positions that they feel like, well, no, that's my position. And when they see them, they think that, well, you couldn't have got it any other way besides taking it from somebody and like stealing it. There's no way you actually worked for it, because in their history and present day, they don't have, even within the country itself, standing up the United States, they don't have any like precedent of like existing, like moving up, like building without taking something from somebody, without stealing. Like they have no creativity in their mind. Well, not even creativity, they have no recall and lack the imagination to imagine that being a possibility. So when they see a black person or a POC in spaces and things like that. It's got to be the DEI thing, even though it don't make sense. That's the only thing they have in their brain. It's like the only way you able to make it, the only way I know you make it in this world is by stealing stuff and like, you know, exploiting and like taking things away from people that belong to them. Take things, and that's it. That's all they got. So yeah, it's the racism, of course, but it's also there's another part of that psychologically where they just don't have the recall. There's no precedent set yet, and they refuse. I don't know, to set a precedent where they can, you know, advance, evolve without exploiting or stealing from other people across the globe and right next door. You know, so that's it. They just can't understand in their brain and just don't connect. Like, how were you able to make it as a black person? And then to look at a black person and know like black people's history of subjugation and oppression, and then see you actually moving, they're like, no, there's absolutely no how you fucking doing that. Blows their brain. So they had to come up with something, and the only thing they come up is what they were able to do since the beginning of days. And by the way, yes, that is stealing from other people, taking all the things, culture, resources, land. That's it. That's all they have, unfortunately for them, because eventually you keep resting on the fact you got to steal while other people making advancements on their own, pulling their own selves up by the bootstraps, even without fucking boots, making the boots themselves. Come day where you don't even know how to make boots. You don't know how to do anything. Okay, y'all have a great day.
You say you don't hate blacks. What do you feel about them, and what do you want done with them?
When time comes, God will send them back to their homeland, Africa. I have nothing against them.
Why will God send them to Africa?
Because all the races will go back to their homeland.
Well, where do whites go? This used to belong to...
Whites stay here, New Jerusalem. America.
Excuse me, whites stay in New Jersey?
New Jerusalem. The United States, New Jerusalem.
Okay, but the Native Americans, which we used to call Indians, they were here first. We have to get out.
No.
So when are you leaving?
I'm not leaving. Wait, listen.
Okay, I'll listen.
In the Bible, it says in Genesis 2, in the chapter of 2, in Genesis, it says that be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it. Subdue it is to rule over, and he was talking to us Israelites, the Adamites, from Adam.
What?
He was talking to Adam.
Okay, well,
We're from Adam.
What has that? Wait a sec. What has that got to do with the fact that if we're returning to where we're from, I gotta tell you that if you go back far enough in your family, you're not from the United States of America. Okay, you're probably.
I don't care, but white Christian America.
You said everybody's got to go back.
It's a promised land. God gave it to us.
Okay, so, God gave it.
That's how it goes.
Excuse me.
If you don't like it, then...
Excuse me, wait, God gave the United States of America to us?
It's a promised land.
Wait, is this in the Bible? The Bible was written before 1776.
Yeah. Yes, and it does tell the future.
So how did God know that there was no United States of America? How could God have given... How in the Bible could it say that God...
God prophesies future in the Bible.
Go ahead.
Well, for one, I am a Baptist child, and for one, who do y'all think y'all coming to this state and just saying stuff about our white people here? Us black people were the first people here, cause I'm Indian, and I don't know what's wrong with y'all. Y'all saying y'all gonna kill somebody? I dare y'all come and touch some of them, cause all of us is one color. Cause when the lights go off, all of us are black.
God bless you.
We don't have any allies. Foundational Black Americans, descendants of American chattel slavery, freedmen, Aboriginal Americans. Whatever name you go by, understand this. We stand alone. This didn't just start in 2025. This has been brewing for a long time, simmering beneath the surface, under the hashtags, under the unity banners, behind the people of color signs. We've been watching. We've been taking notes. And now it's time to speak it plain. They told us we were all in this together. People of color, minorities, non-white solidarity, but time after time, when our backs were against the wall, where were they? Let's go back. A few years ago, Asian students sued Harvard, said affirmative action was hurting them, that we were being given some unfair advantage, that our presence meant their absence. Never mind the numbers, never mind the history, never mind the truth. They blamed us, put a target on us. said the playing field was no longer fair because we were finally allowed on it. But here's what they didn't see coming. Now they're not getting in either. Student visas are getting denied, embassies tightening up, enrollment falling. Now they're asking what happened. But the truth is, it started when you thought we were the problem. Then there's reparations, our fight, our demand, our justice. And yet, some of the loudest voices pushing against it, Black immigrants. People who look like us, but don't stand with us. Mona David said it herself. We chose to come here. Reparations aren't for us. That may be true, but what she really meant was, they're not for you. You, the Black American. You, the descendant of the enslaved. You, the one who built this country and never left. Then you had the Latino Trump voters. Loud, proud, waving flags, casting ballots, thinking the policies wouldn't touch them, that the deportations were for somebody else, that they could climb up by pushing others down. And now they're getting deported too. Now they're panicking, saying you're next. But that's the part they never understood. We're not next. We're not in line. We're not part of the immigration system. We've been here. We are not visitors. We are not guests. We are not recent arrivals. We are the soil. We are the sacrifice. We are the seed and the storm. And that's exactly what makes them uncomfortable. Because no matter how close they try to get to whiteness, no matter how many degrees they get, how many flags they wave, how many times they call us lazy or ungrateful, we are still the center of the American story. The ones they imitate, the ones they fear, the ones they hope to erase. So now the question is, were you ever really standing with us? Or were you just hoping we'd stay at the bottom while you climbed over our backs? Because it's giving not allyship, not unity, not justice. It's giving anti-Black American, not anti-racist, not anti-oppression, just anti-us. And that's why we don't have any.
Welcome back to the channel. I think that is one of a horror story that I've ever had. I didn't really know that these people hated us to this level. We have seen many videos of Black people rescuing other whites in buildings. I saw a video of a Black immigrant in France who was scaling up the apartment to just go up and really rescue a child who was in a burning house. And he succeeded and he was applauded for it. But you find that someone who is being paid to do this job, to save people who are in such kind of catastrophes, they can just ignore because that person is not of their race. How low can we sink in our treachery? How low can we sink really? How low can we sink? Is this how we should survive with our neighbors and friends? And it is not him who started it. It is something that has always been there over the years. Blacks have been subjected to tons and tons of hatred. Where they have been seen to be thriving, laws have been made to criminalize their activities. People have thought that blacks can never amount to anything good, and therefore everything bad is what should go their way. It's really sad. Let me give you a little bit of history of how blacks have suffered in the hands of whites. The hatred of Black people by whites in America has deep historical roots, originating in the institution of slavery that began in the early 17th century. Enslaved Africans were dehumanized, treated as property, and subjected to brutal violence to maintain white supremacy and economic gain. This system embedded racial hierarchies in American society, with whiteness equated to freedom and blackness to inferiority. Pseudoscientific theories of racial differences propagated in the 18th and 19th centuries further justified this hatred by falsely claiming Black people were biologically inferior. These ideas were not only personal prejudice, but were codified into laws such as slave codes, which denied Black people basic rights and reinforced their subjugation. This foundational dehumanization created a legacy of racial animosity that persisted beyond slavery abolition in 1865. Listen to that. There are pseudoscientists who came out and did some fake research. Then they claimed that blacks are inferior to whites. And there was nothing factual about whatever they came about with. But then this non-factual thing that they came up with was used to deny blacks basic rights. How low can we sink, my brothers and sisters? How low can we sink? Do we really hate blacks to this level? Are we really hated to this level? Must this be how we get treated everywhere? Then when we start talking about reparations, you'll hear some people saying that that is free money. They can't give blacks that. They're saying that they are not responsible for our slavery and therefore they don't have anything to give us. They are forgetting that America as it is today is a product of black excellence, is a product of black resilience, is a product of black suffering. Why can't they just say that we recognize how institutionalized racism has affected your growth, has limited your upward mobility, has enhanced the wealth gap that exists between us, and therefore we have to implement some affirmative actions that will help blacks achieve what they deserve. They can't think of that. They think that blacks deserve the worst, and that is what they should be getting. After Civil War, the Reconstruction era briefly promised equality, but white backlash led to the institutionalization of racism through Jim Crow laws, particularly in the South. These laws enforced segregation, restricted black voting rights, and limited economic opportunities, perpetuating the idea that black people are second-class citizens. White supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan emerged, using violence and intimidation to maintain racial control. Lynchings, often public spectacles, were tools of terror to enforce submission and reinforce white dominance. Economic exclusion, such as redlining and discriminatory lending, further entrenched black communities in poverty, creating disparities that fueled stereotypes of black inferiority. This systemic marginalization ensured that hatred was not just personal, but structural, embedded in the fabric of American institutions. And I can tell you that this hatred has never been eliminated. Remember when President Obama got to office, while many blacks got happy about the entire event, there are those who really looked at it and said that America lost. And that is what really informed Trump's slogan of making America great again. Because according to him, Obama had destroyed America, and America was not America that it should be because a black person got an opportunity to be in the highest office in the land. That really tells you the level of hatred that we have received. Look at other candidates, people like Kamala Harris, who stood against Trump the other time. What did she get? She was called names. And white Americans ensured that she was not going to rise to that powerful office. And this really tells you that no matter where you are, being a black person in Africa, being a black person in the United States, being a black person in the Caribbean, we must always come together and forge a way forward that can give us dominance and greatness within our circles. And that is why when people like Minister Louis Farrakhan talk about the need for blacks to champion investment within their communities, the need for blacks to support their own businesses, people like Dick Gregory, when they say that blacks can never exist without economic empowerment, we can't get total freedom when we are not empowered economically. I tend to buy this kind of claims. I tend to buy this kind of ideas. So I think this kind of hatred is something that has happened over the years, and it does not really have a limit. It continues to happen, and it has been institutionalized within America so that we look like we don't deserve anything, so that we look like we are always at the lowest level of human existence. In the 20th century, despite civil rights gains, hatred persisted through subtler but equally damaging mechanisms. The war on drugs, initiated in the 1970s, disproportionately targeted black communities, leading to mass incarceration and destruction of black families. Policies like mandatory minimum sentencing and racial profiling by law enforcement perpetuated the criminalization of blackness. Media portrayals often reinforced negative stereotypes, depicting black people as dangerous or lazy, which shaped public perceptions and justified discriminatory practices. Educational disparities rooted in undermined and underfunded schools in predominantly black neighborhoods limited opportunities for upward mobility, reinforcing circles of poverty and marginalization. These systemic issues were not accidents. but outcomes of policies that maintained white advantage. Reading this makes me feel like enough is enough. We have gone through hell. But then, I like the fact that we still have some whites who have it in their hearts to recognize the level of challenges that blacks have gone through. People like Tim Wise have been speaking publicly and providing platforms for blacks to really engage, for blacks to talk about the challenges that they're going through freely. And this is what is needed. I believe black people will have a time when they will be able to stand tall and say they are proud of who they are, they are proud of where they've come from, and they believe their resilience has stood up for them. When they thought that blacks could end and blacks could be finished, it didn't happen because we were saved by the great resilience that we have as a people. Cultural and social narratives have also played a role in perpetuating anti-black hatred. White Americans, often unaware of their privilege, have historically resisted acknowledging systemic racism, framing racial inequalities, individual failings. These denials sustained a culture where black lives are undervalued, as seen in ongoing police violence and disparities in healthcare, housing, and employment. Political rhetoric, especially from the 20th century onwards, has at times exploited racial fears to gather white support, further entrenching divisions. Dog-whistling politics, using coded languages to appeal to racial biases, have kept alive the undercurrent of hatred without overtly violating social norms. These narratives normalize discrimination and allow systemic racism to persist under the guise of colorblindness. Today, the legacy of this hatred is evident in persistent wealth gaps, health disparities, and spatial or social inequalities. Movements like Black Lives Matter have highlighted how systemic racism continues to shape black experience, yet resistance to these movements reveal the endurance of racial animosity. While overt hatred has declined in some spheres, implicit bias and structural inequalities remain pervasive. Addressing this requires confronting the historical and institutional mechanisms that have sustained anti-black racism for centuries. From slavery to modern-day policies, addressing this requires confronting the historical and institutional mechanisms that have sustained anti-black racism for centuries, from slavery to modern-day policies. I can tell you that the kind of experiences and challenges that blacks have gone through, it's really disheartening if you got to listen to it on a deeper level. I believe blacks, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, we will reach a point where we are not judged by the skin color that we have, but by the content that is there in our brains. I believe blacks will rise again and we shall win in the end. Share your thoughts down in the comment section if you're watching us for the first time. And also remember to subscribe to the channel so that we get to achieve this dream of 100,000 subscribers. Thank you, and let's meet on the next one.